Okay, so first thing you want to do is remove the sway bar bolt down here. And in order to do that, it's best if you jack up the brake disc to take the load off the sway bar, and then the bolt will come straight out. So in order to do that, I just put a piece of wood under the disc so as to not damage it. You just want to jack it up until you can see the bolt is pretty much straight through. And it's 17 mil. And then the bolt should come straight out. If it doesn't, you might just need to either lift or lower the brake disc a little bit. And just tap on it with a hammer. That's out. Next, going to remove the lower shock bolt here, which is an 18 mil bolt. You just need to hold it on one end with a wrench. And use a ratchet, or in my case an impact gun. And again, it's helpful to jack up the brake rotor to take the load off the shock. Now that the nut's off the end, you just want to find the spot on the suspension where it'll just slide out. That's out. Okay, so next we're going to go into the engine bay to remove the upper shock bolts here. Just take off this rubber and then take off this plastic cover here. Side. And then there's 3 bolts for the top of the strut that you have to remove here. One's underneath this little plastic cover. So just gotta pop that out with a flathead screwdriver. And these bolts are all 5/8. There's one. Two. I always like to use a magnet to get the bolts under here so you don't drop them into the engine bay. And on this one, and the one here, there's a big washer on it. So make sure you don't lose that in the engine bay as well. And that's it for the top of the struts. Okay, so now back underneath the car. The way I like to do it is to compress the spring in here using a spring compressor. And a little trick I learned is you can just jack up the suspension here again using the brake rotor to compress the spring already, so you don't have to do it all off the car. And the way that I'm taking these out will alleviate the need to take out the pinch bolt here, which is a known problem area on these cars. And I had the same problem with my old Audi A4 that I had. This pinch bolt, it's a different metal. I believe it's steel, and the uprights are aluminum. so it creates this corrosion that's even stronger than rust. And very often in like northern climates, like up here, this is pretty much seized. There's no way to remove it without breaking something or getting it stuck, broken off inside there. So the way I like to do it is I'll remove the control arm bolts up here. I'll just show you. Remove the 2 control arm bolts, one here and one on this side. And in order to get access to them, I just need to, now that we've loosened the top here, I need to drop that down and then I can access those 2 bolts. So in order to do that, first I'm going to put the spring compressor on here. You can do this too without a spring, without compressing it on the car. I just like to do this because it's easier to compress with the jack, and then I don't have to worry about compressing the spring once I get it off and out of the car. So, just get these lined up. So once they're around the proper coils there, start to jack up the car, and then you can close this off as you go. And this way you can just do it by hand. It's really easy. You don't have to get in there with a wrench. So again, I'm just jacking up the rotor with a block of wood there. And it's just compressing the suspension for me. I'll just tighten the spring compressor as I go, and I can just easily hand tighten it here. You just want to watch, you don't want to go too tight in here. You want there still to be room for the compressor claws to have space in there. And now, when I lower the jack, the spring will be compressed. And like I said, that just saves me from having to compress it off the car. And this makes it actually a lot easier to take out the way that we're going to take it out. Because if you don't compress it, the shock will be pressing down on the lower arm here. But now that it's compressed, there's more room to play with here. So next thing I'm going to do is pull this down. There's a little bolt here with a little washer on it. It's just to hold it in place. It just simply slides off. You just need the washer is holding it. Sometimes it comes down with a tug. Sometimes you can use a little flathead screwdriver, apply off the washer, but basically just give it a shake with the tug. I'm going to get a pry bar and just get underneath the upper arm a little bit. Pry it down. You just want to wiggle it off that bolt. It just locates it in place. There we go. So you can see up here, I'm just prying underneath here, just to loosen it off that bolt. And if your suspension has been out before, it's likely this washer's not even there. So this will just come right off. There we go. There's the washer. So now that the top is loose, This gives me some access to get in here and loosen the upper control arm bolts, which are 5/8. You just need to hold one end with a wrench. So I got one wrench on the nut, and one on the bolt here. No, it's not necessary, but sometimes I like to use this wrench here. Fits a little easier in the tight spots. Once it's loose, you can turn a little bit with your finger and just try to wiggle it out. There we go. Now for the other side, you just have to wiggle it a bit so you got access to see both sides again. The wrench on one end. It's a really tight fit in there with the spring. You're gonna have to use the open-ended side of the wrench. Just makes it a little more tricky. There's the nut off the back end. Now here, it's starting to run into the inner fender here, so I'm gonna have to wiggle it. Sometimes you have to go in and turn the steering wheel, turn it out to the right, so you can get the suspension just at a different angle here. You just have to find a spot where there's enough clearance for this bolt to come out of the actual housing here. There we go. And I've got the steering wheel turned fully to the right, so that this whole arm is turned, giving me enough clearance on the top here. Now I'm just going to go ahead and take off these two fender liner screws, make it a little easier to access in here. They are T25 torque screws. There we go. So you can see the bolt is almost completely out. Just a few more turns on the end to get it to come completely out of there. Oh shit. There, finally. It's out. Okay. Now, the control arm usually just drops right out. It's just the rubber bushing holding it in there. Use the drive bar, pry it down. Yeah. So now the strut is free. We just need to get it over the lower control arm to get it out. So now we just need to get this strut over the lower control arm at the bottom there. So I'm just lifting it. There we go. And there you have it. It's out. The spring's already compressed. Now we can take it to the bench and take it apart. Okay, so now we just need to loosen the top bolt right in here. Now, sometimes you can do it with this. But if it's too tight on there, the whole shaft just turns. So, if it doesn't work right away, it's an 18 mil nut on the top. So this is there's a special tool, or you can get like a crowfoot wrench or something. But what I did, I just took a socket and I ground off the sides so I can hold it with a wrench, because you have to get in there middle with an Allen key, or like this, 6 mil. You need to hold that in the middle while you turn the nut. So with that on there, I can hold the Allen key like that. So I can hold it with that while I turn it with a wrench. So you just want to try to turn it off while holding the middle in place. And it looks like the impact gun did loosen it a bit, so it's coming off nice and easy here. There, I'll change to that wrench that holds it more securely in the middle. So you're just loosening the nut while holding the center in place. And I should mention, if you haven't put on the your spring compressors yet, you want to do that at this stage before you start loosening the nut. Since mine are already on, they're holding it. This is the sport suspension, which is not a ton of energy pushing against the top anyway. So, but you always want to be careful when working with any kind of springs. And the reason there's not as much tension along the top is because this spring is a bit shorter than the standard suspension. So. You shouldn't feel any tension on this top nut at all. That would mean your spring is not compressed. It comes off easily. And the top mount. And the washer underneath. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you can. It helps me out on YouTube here. Hope you enjoyed.